All right, 10-minute snack. Everyone knows the rules. Let's eat. All right, so I have the pleasure of having Laura Spath on with us today for our snack, and I'm super excited to talk with Laura. We met for the first time at KetoCon this year, but both you and your husband have lost over 100 pounds on a carnivore diet. You've been doing it for approximately 4 years, I believe.
Yep.
And I would love to talk to you about so you have a corporate job and you travel a lot, and doing carnivore on the road, especially with travel, is not the easiest thing. So I'd love to hear some tips, tactics, strategies of how you go about that. And one thing I want to note for listeners is I love Laura's videos, both YouTube and her Instagram reels of what I order. So if you get stuck and you want to figure out what you order at Wendy's, Laura's Instagram reels is where to find those. So Laura, thanks for being here. And any insights on carnivore on the go?
Yeah, I get a lot of practice just traveling or being away from home. And the really nice thing is that you really can figure it out anywhere. Unless I end up at a vegan restaurant, I could find something really anywhere I go. And that's really my goal with those videos, is not even the specific restaurants, but just to kind of show people the mindset of like, it's okay to look at your server and just say, hey, I would really love a plate of just some meats. What options do you all have for me to make that happen? And they are usually very knowledgeable about the menu and the buttons and kind of how all that works. They're more knowledgeable than me. And so that's kind of one of my favorites. I'll go to a Mexican restaurant and just say, I love rather than paying $22 for fajitas, and then by the time you just eat all the meat out, which is all you can have, you're getting 4-6 ounces of meat. I'll just kind of ask, hey, if I get a plate full of a bunch of sides of fajita meat, is that possible? Like, what kind of meats do you all have that I can order like that? And most of the time they're like, yeah, we have 4 ounces, 6 ounces. I can ring up sides. There's just having a conversation with your server is really helpful, first of all. And then sometimes it's up to me where I go. If I'm traveling by myself, obviously I'm going to pick restaurants where I know I can get a great meal, but I also end up in a lot of restaurants that are determined by the group or the clients that I'm with or the company that I'm with. And it's really not up to me. And so as much as possible, I try to look at the menu ahead and kind of like game plan what steaks there are, or if there's any decent options. But at the end of the day, just kind of talking to your server or the person ordering and saying, I would love just some meat. How can I do that? What's the best way to do that?
So what are some of your go-to restaurants and fast food? Like if you're just by yourself, what are you choosing?
Absolutely. I look for Buffalo Wild Wings first and foremost. Their burger patties are so underrated. They're amazing. And they will do like an individual burger patty for you. So you don't have to, it comes with like, burger and bun and fries and kind of all of that. So they'll do a la carte burger patties. And they fry their wings, their traditional wings, in beef tallow. So I do try to avoid seed oils when I go out. It's definitely my intention to go to places where I can avoid seed oils. And that's what I would do if I have my own choice. But if I ended up at another restaurant and the only thing on the menu was wings and I wasn't really sure of the oils, to be honest, I probably would eat it anyway, depending on what was going on. And I just try to limit the frequency of how often I do that. So Buffalo Wild Wings is definitely my go-to.
Interesting. I've not heard that. Do you have a go-to? Because I don't travel nearly as often as
Yeah.
you, but I have found some places you get a steal of a deal ordering patties. And then other places, I was traveling last month and ordering just a patty was the same price as ordering like the full
Yeah.
hamburger meal. And so I was like, man, I'm just going to try and order 1 pound of hamburger burger, like fast food burgers is going to cost me like $20. Do you have any like a list of like, this is the number one cheap place, or this is like some good options here?
I always hit up In-N-Out first, and I hate talking about it because it's regional. And obviously if you don't live on the West Coast, or in where there's an In-N-Out, it's harder to find, but they have 2-ounce patties and they are 90 cents a piece. And then they'll add cheese to it as well. And their cheese is like a home, they make their own American cheese. So it's going to be a little better than some of the other fast food restaurants. So not only for the taste, but also the price, I appreciate that. Like, it's kind of easy for me to get that. Really my go-to, if you're looking at like a national change, I love a Burger King or a Wendy's. They're both really tasty and they'll do a la carte patties as well. something like Five Guys is delicious, but when you try to add the bacon and the cheese on top of it, like I always do, they end up, like you mentioned, they charge you for the whole patty. It ends up being like $20. And so it's just really not worth it for me. I try to avoid that.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting because I mean, I was just recently looked up, like McDonald's even is their
Yeah,
hamburger patties 100% beef, not cooked in seed oils, supposedly.
absolutely.
So it's like, I think a lot of people fear they're getting really low quality meat when they go to fast food, but I don't think that is the case. Maybe that was the case in the back in the day with lots of fillers and things like that. But from what I can tell, a lot of these fast food chains are 100% beef patties, like not cooked in seed oils, because one, from an economic perspective, like they wouldn't, why add fat when you don't
Right.
need to? Like there's enough fat with it already. So that's interesting. One last thing that we can talk about, I think we've got a little bit of time, is your husband also does carnivore and you have two kids, I believe 6 and 8 years old,
Yes.
roughly 6 and 8. How does the family situation work?
So, they're prepping lunch right now. When we finish with this, we're going to go have a family lunch. We homeschool. And so we get the luxury of kind of like having a family lunch together every day. We do like one big meal a day, which is lunch. My husband only eats one meal a day still.
Mm,
And he's a stay-at-home homeschool dad. And so he gets the luxury of like grilling himself this big meal every day for lunch. And it really just kind of says like, all right, here's the meats we got. What does everybody want for lunch today? And then everybody, I think today we're making some shrimp. We have a little bit of picanha left over. I have a filet that I'm going to eat along with that. And then we're going to throw a whole bunch of pork chops on the grill as well, and just fill up the grill with what anybody wants. It's so nice to not, like, I don't have to cook a whole bunch of meals to give everybody something different. We just throw something on the grill. And then my husband and I will kind of stick to just the meat section. And then the kids know there's, several things in the fridge and the pantry that they also can add to that. So they're going to go grab the piece of cheese that they want. They might go grab, we keep some vegetables that they like pre-made in the fridge. And so like they have some steamed zucchini that if they feel like it, they might go grab some of that and just eat it cold. Or my daughter's on a cucumber kick, so she'll go grab some cucumbers that are already sliced up, and then they might grab some macadamia nuts. It's really, we try to just let them pick the rest of their meal, right? So like everybody just decides the protein that my husband would grill up. And then it's like, okay, guys, go grab a couple other things that you want. And in a lot of ways, it's empowering them to make those decisions. And they know kind of like the amount or the number of different things that they have to choose from. And then they can, go and add everything else to the rest of their plate, which makes them more excited to want to eat it when they've decided what it is.
I love that. One of the things that you kind of hit on here. So my girlfriend has an 11-year-old son, and he was not raised with, I would say, like,
Yeah.
I'll say standard American kind of diet. So anyways, we have dinner, and yes, there's a meat, but there's also like a starch and a vegetable and a fruit or whatever. Every single night, it's like the meat is the last thing that gets eaten,
Mm,
basically. And then I'm too full. I ate all the potatoes or the
right.
spaghetti. I can't eat the meat. And I just think like one of the simple solutions that a parent could have is like, okay, we're going to eat meat first. And then once that's
Yes.
done, you can move on to the next thing. It sounds like that's kind of how it works with your kids.
Oh, absolutely. They know that they get to eat the meat first. And then after the meat's gone, then they eat other things. And, we've done, they're not 100% strict all the time. If they go to a birthday party, they might have a treat, but then they come home and know that, hey, we had some sugar today. So we're going to do no sugar for supper to kind of balance that out. But sometimes it's funny when they get together with friends and maybe they had some, a burger or something, and they watch their friends, and early on they would come and be like, Mom, they're not eating their meat first. And so it is like, it's just now this nice habit where they know, eat the meat first and then I get other things. But we have to remind them, like, not all kids are like that, or not all families still do the same way, but that's whatever their protein is, right? They eat 3 meals a day. There's protein in each meal. And then there's going to be some like fruit for breakfast, or there's going to be some other things that they have. They know protein first and then everything else if they're still hungry.
Okay, so the kids eat standard breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yes.
Chris does just a big lunch.
Yes.
And do you do 2 meals like lunch, dinner, or
I
breakfast and
do.
lunch?
I would say most of the time, I really just can't eat enough in one sitting anymore. I did the 1 meal a day thing for a
Right.
long time, but then over time, I just found I was under eating and it was causing me some issues. And so I just can't get enough food in one sitting anymore. And so I typically eat a big lunch with the family, and then I'll have a much smaller meal in the evening as a supper or dinner. And maybe on the weekends, I'll do, if we have an extra big lunch and I've had some cheese or something else to go along with it, then I might find myself not hungry for dinner. But I try to almost just like mentally force myself to make sure, because I know over time it's very easy for me just to get into the habit of eating that one meal, and then I'm under eating when it comes to dinner. So typically I'm doing 2 meals.
A question about the one meal, especially like Chris and your experience. One meal in the middle of the afternoon, for me, I would have to eat a lot of food.
Yeah.
And after that, I would be like, okay, I need to rest and digest this afternoon, maybe take a little siesta, which is not conducive to my work life.
Right.
Does Chris have any of that? Did you have any of that kind of like that sway if you have just one big meal versus I tend to do 2 or 3 meals. Like I actually kind of like 3 smaller
Yeah.
meals. And to me, it just keeps me balanced, satiated. But how's like your energies been with one meal a day versus 2 versus 3?
Yeah. I don't really notice a difference, to be honest, because when we are doing really strictly just meat, if Chris sits down to one meal, he'll have, 2 pounds of steak. Or we do some more variety now where he might have like a pile of chicken wings and a steak and then just kind of go on about his day. I was the same way. I really never had that energy crash. I do hear that from people before of like, if they eat too much in one sitting, they have that energy crash afterwards. For us, it was really beneficial to eat one meal a day in the beginning. I mean, I used to eat a whole pizza and a pint of ice cream in one sitting in my old life. And I was just so used to eating a lot of volume. And if I sit down to eat a meal and to tell myself like, this is 2 eggs and 4 pieces of bacon, like that's enough, you can stop eating. My brain says, no, you still can breathe. You're not full yet. And it is harder for us to stop eating when I'm just no longer hungry, but I have I need to just wait till I'm full. And obviously that's not necessary for most people for nutrition wise. So I think that's still why my husband likes to just stick to that one meal a day. And I would prefer that from a mental standpoint, but physically it's just not healthy for me to do because I can't eat that much anymore. But he really just enjoys eating a lot in one sitting, feeling very full. And then it's so much easier just to like turn off that part of you until the next day and not worry about eating again and not overeating. Because he would eat another meal in the evening and it would just be just as big as his lunch was.
Mm-hmm. That is so interesting because my personal experience is 100% the same as yours. Meaning like I'm not gonna go into my history,
Yeah.
but I could eat and would not feel satisfied until like my stomach physically hurt. And I'm like,
Right.
all right, I'm done. And that's how I was for a very long time until I was only eating meat, where I get to this point where the stomach is not like expanding and I
Right.
feel like I'm satisfied. But it took a long time for me to get there. And I didn't realize how kind of, I would say, not normal that is to like eat until you're in pain. But that was one of the
Right.
things, it was a very big shift for me because everyone that knew me, similar to you, it's like I open up ice cream, like I'm eating the
A
entire
pint is a
thing.
serving, right?
Like
That's
a
just
bag
it.
of chips is one serving. Like that's
Yes.
that's how serving size worked. And so that's so interesting. I have thoroughly loved this conversation. Laura, thanks for being on. I want to tell people where they can find you because I know you have a YouTube channel. I love your podcast with Judy called Cutting Against the Grain. I love your reels with ordering. So anywhere else people can find you because your content is amazing. I love it. I know other people love it as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, that's the best. Those are the best places. Judy and I have such fun doing that podcast and hopefully, bringing some context and nuance to this community where, you can just hear so many different things and it gets kind of confusing and overwhelming to know which one of these paths to follow and what to do. And so we just try to have, some longer conversations diving into that. So really YouTube and that podcast are the best places.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. We'll link all that below.
Thank you so much.
Snack time's over. Did you enjoy the snack? If so, drop me a comment. Let me know if we should dive deeper and do a full meal on this topic. Also, P.S. If you liked the snacks, you're going to love our bites. A daily email bite, a golden nugget, better than a pasture-raised egg yolk. All right, maybe not that good, but it is a daily bite to optimize your health and nutrition with a meat-based diet. Access right now is totally free. Link below. See you in the bites.